You know, it's not every day you get news that kind of blurs the line between science fiction and reality, right?
Yeah.
But today, we're diving deep into a huge moment for brain science because, get this, scientists have created the first ever complete map of an adult fruit fly brain.
It's a game changer, no doubt.
Now, before anyone goes, why flies? This is way bigger than just understanding how a fly thinks, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's giving us this incredible window into how brains in general work, and that includes ours.
So we're talking of something called a connectome here, right? Like a wiring diagram, but for the brain.
Exactly. We've seen simpler connectomes before, a worm, a larval fruit fly, but this is the big leagues, a whole new level.
And why is that? What makes this one such a giant leap?
Well, imagine mapping every single wire in, say, a huge computer network. Now, imagine that network is responsible for flight, for navigation, for, well, even for courtship rituals, all in a space smaller than a poppy seed.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. This team mapped almost 140,000 neurons. And get this, millions of connections between them, all in a fruit fly brain.
That's absolutely mind-blowing. But I think some people might be wondering, why should I care about a fly brain? Aren't they, like, totally different from us?
Well, you might be surprised to learn that these little guys share a surprising amount of DNA with us, humans.
Oh, yeah. How much are we talking?
About 60%, give or take. Seriously.
Yeah.
And it's not just any DNA. We're talking about the genes that control really fundamental cellular processes, you know, the very building blocks of life. Critically, the genes that guide nervous system development.
So the similarities are more than just skin deep.
Exactly. These similarities are a big reason why scientists can study fruit flies and actually learn things that apply to human conditions.
Right. It's like having a living, breathing model right there in the lab.
Precisely. In fact, get this, 3 out of 4 human genetic diseases have a parallel in fruit flies.
Wow.
So you can see how every connection, every pathway they uncover in that tiny fly brain could hold clues to human diseases.
Yeah.
Things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. We could learn so much.
It's incredible to think that something so small could have such huge potential for understanding the human brain.
It really is a testament to just how interconnected life really is, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So how did they even begin to map something this complex? I mean, we're still talking about a brain smaller than a poppy seed. How do you even see it?
It's remarkable. They started with 21 million images.
21 million.
You heard that right, 21 million.
What?
And all of a fruit fly brain.
Okay, I have to ask, how does electron microscopy even work? I have a feeling it's not as simple as just like snapping a few pictures with your phone.
You're right about that. It's more like, imagine slicing something incredibly, like thinner than a strand of hair.
Wow.
And then you fire a beam of electrons at it. Those electrons, they either pass through or bounce off the sample. And that creates this super detailed image of its structure. And they did this, slice by slice, for the entire fruit fly brain.
Wow, 21 million images. It's like a gigantic 3D jigsaw puzzle, but on like a microscopic scale.
Exactly. And that's just the first step. Now imagine having to analyze and connect each neuron in those images, tracing their paths. That's where it really gets interesting.
So how do you make sense of 21 million images?
This is where human ingenuity meets some really cutting-edge tech. They needed a supercomputer, obviously, but they also needed human brains to help make sense of it all.
So they basically taught a computer to map a brain.
In a way, yeah. But it wasn't easy. They had to train the AI to recognize these subtle patterns and shapes of neurons.
How do you even start to do that?
Well, this is where it gets really cool. They turned to gamers.
Gamers, hold on. Are you telling me that playing video games helped map a brain?
Believe it or not, yeah. Sometimes us humans are just better at spotting patterns, these little details that computers miss. And it's those little aha moments that make all the difference.
So they actually had gamers look at the images and trace the paths of neurons, and that helped train the AI to get better, to be more accurate.
Exactly.
That's incredible. That's amazing what we can do with video games these days. But even with AI and gamers helping out, this project must have taken forever.
Years of work. And it really goes to show the amazing collaborative spirit of science, you know. This project involved researchers and volunteers from all over the world. It's really a testament to what's possible when we combine, well, our collective intelligence, our ingenuity.
Okay, so now we have this amazing, super detailed map of a fruit fly brain. But what does it all mean? What can we actually do with it? And how does any of this impact us? Let's get into that right after this.
Okay, so we're back, and we've got this incredible map, this connectome of the fruit fly brain. But it's more than just a cool picture, right? What can we actually do with it?
That's a million-dollar question. And honestly, the answer is potentially, well, everything. This map has the potential to completely change how we understand how brains work. And not just fly brains, all brains. Remember that 60% genetic similarity?
Yeah.
A lot of that overlap is like right in the fundamental processes of the brain.
Okay, so by studying this fly connectome, we're essentially looking at this like streamlined model of our own brains, kind of like a blueprint. Exactly. And this blueprint, it could hold the key to understanding, well, everything from how we process information, how we make decisions, how our senses work, even how we learn and form memories, all kinds of things.
It's like having this like roadmap to the brain, but instead of streets, it's neurons and synapses, right?
Right.
Speaking of which, what exactly is a synapse? I mean, I've heard the word, but...
Oh, good question. Think of synapses as these tiny little junctions where neurons connect and talk to each other. They're like the bridges or the tunnels on your roadmap, allowing information to flow from one part of the brain to another.
Okay.
And this map, it shows us not just where the roads are, but also all the bridges and tunnels connecting them. It's really amazing.
So by studying how like signals travel across these synapses, we can start to understand how different parts of the brain actually work together and maybe even see how things go wrong in like diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
Exactly. Imagine like comparing a healthy connectome to one from a brain affected by Alzheimer's, where, neurons are misfiring, connections are breaking down.
Right.
This map, it could actually help us see those breakdowns in incredible detail.
Wow.
And that could lead to, earlier diagnoses, maybe even more targeted treatments.
That would be incredible. So we're not just talking about treating symptoms at that point. We're talking about maybe even preventing or reversing these diseases, going right to the source.
That's the ultimate goal. And while we obviously still have a long way to go, this connectome, it definitely brings us one giant step closer. But it's not just about disease, right?
No.
It's about understanding what makes us us, the essence of who we are.
It's like consciousness, decision-making, maybe even emotions in a fly.
Well, we may not be asking flies about their feelings anytime soon.
Right.
But you're hitting on something important. This map, it gives us a starting point to investigate the neural circuits behind these processes, the really complex ones. We can study how different parts of the brain are connected, how signals travel between them, and that could unlock secrets about how our brains create these experiences.
This is where it gets really exciting to me. We're talking about unlocking the secrets of the brain, things that seemed impossible just a little while ago.
I know, right? It's amazing to think about and to think this is just the beginning. As we dig deeper into this map, as we create even better technologies, who knows what other mysteries of the brain will unravel?
It's mind-blowing. We're on the verge of this whole new era of brain science. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's maybe talk about some of the challenges, some of the limitations of this research. I mean, there's always more to the story, right?
Absolutely. Having a map is one thing, but knowing how to read it, how to actually understand it, that's another thing altogether.
So we've got this incredible map, this roadmap to the fly brain. But like you were saying, understanding how to read it, how to decode the language of the brain, that's the next hurdle.
Exactly. We're still, in the early stages of really understanding how all the pieces fit together. Having the complete map of the connections, that's huge, don't get me wrong. But it's like having, say, a map of all the roads in the world. But you don't know where people live, where they work, what they do. It's a starting point, for sure, but it's not the finish line.
Okay, so we need to figure out the traffic patterns of the brain, right? How information actually flows through all those neural connections. How do we even begin to do that?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. There are scientists right now developing incredible new technologies and techniques that actually let us observe brain activity in real time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Imagine being able to see which neurons light up when a fly sees, say, a potential mate, or when it decides to fly towards a food source.
So we could actually watch the thought processes of a fly in action.
We could. It's like the next frontier of neuroscience.
That's incredible.
And by combining that kind of dynamic view of brain activity with this super detailed connectome we've been talking about,
Right.
well, we can start to understand not just what the brain is made of, but how it actually works moment to moment.
And because of those similarities we talked about, those insights from the fly brain, they could then help us understand what's going on in our own brains.
Absolutely. The basic principles of neural communication, the ways those neurons talk to each other, that's likely to be shared across species.
So it's like learning like the grammar rules of a language, right?
Yeah.
Once you know those rules, you can start to decipher even the most complex sentences.
That's a great way to put it. This map, it gives us a new language to understand the brain. And just like with any language, the more we study it, the more fluent we become in, well, reading its secrets.
It's mind-blowing to think we're really just scratching the surface here of what we can learn. This one fruit fly brain, this tiny little network of neurons, it's opened up this whole universe of possibilities.
It really has. And it makes you realize the power of curiosity, of just pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible. It's really inspiring.
It really is. And that's where we'll leave you today with, well, hopefully a little bit of that sense of wonder and possibility. What will this map ultimately reveal about the language of the brain? What breakthroughs will it inspire? What other mysteries of the mind will we unlock? One thing's for sure, the future of brain science is looking very, very bright. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious.